welcome to a very special plenary event. Welcome to a very special plenary event with Dr. Vandana Shiva and Linda Tucker. It is so wonderful to have you back with us, Dr. Vandana Shiva. And Linda, welcome back to World Unity Week. Linda, we have just a little trouble with your camera there. Let me do the introductions while we're waiting for that. Dr. Vandana Shiva, of course, is known to most of you as an intellectual giant and activist from India who's worked in a wide range of different fields, inspiring change globally. Her activism is rooted in promoting counter-development and supporting grassroots networks, women's rights and ecology. As the author of numerous important books and articles, Shiva has shown a lifetime interest in campaigning against genetic engineering and the negative impacts of globalisation, advocating for the crucial importance of preserving and celebrating biodiversity. Dr. Shiva's record has been that of the totally committed, very productive and effective activist, advocate, intellectual. As an activist, she has coordinated, supported and learned from grassroots networks on a wide range of issues across India. As an advocate, especially in international fora, she has proven to be one of the most articulate spokespersons of counter-development in favour of people-centred, participatory processes. As an intellectual, Dr. Vandana Shiva has produced a stream of important books and articles which have done much both to form and address the agenda of development, debate and action. It is an honour and a privilege to have you back with us, Vandana. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Ben.
And Linda Tucker, thank you so much, Linda, for joining us. I know you're on the road and you moved things to be with us and the flexibility we really appreciate. After being rescued by a Songa medicine woman from a life-threatening encounter with a pride of lions in 1991, Linda Tucker gave up a career in international marketing to become a conservationist. Since this time, Linda has dedicated her life to the urgent protection of the critically endangered white lions, venerated as the King of Kings by African elders. Despite their rarity and cultural importance, the white lions have no protected status and may be trophy hunted in the wild and in captivity. I've had the pleasure and privilege of being with Linda at the White Lion Trust and seeing the extraordinary work that you do to preserve these magnificent animals. So it's, again, Linda, thank you so much for being back with us in World Unity Week. You're good?
Thank you. Thank you, Ben. It's an absolute honor to be back at World Unity Week with Vandana Shiva. Dr. Vandana is a true inspiration of our times, and I am honored to take our discussion forward because it gives me courage.
So friends, this is continuing. I was so excited and so grateful, and you just feel the electricity here. This is continuing an amazing conversation which emerged between Dr. Vandana Shiva and Linda Tucker last year in World Unity Week, which we didn't even know what it was called until through the conversation it emerged, this beautiful dialogue between the lion and the seed, and the life work and the devotion of Dr. Shiva to the soil and to seeds in particular. And of course, Linda's incredible devotion to the white lions, and where they come together and they find each other and they can educate and inform us so deeply about what we are learning from nature as nature through these incredible pioneering efforts. So in that context, bringing again Linda and Vandana together to continue the lion and the seed. And this World Unity Week and these 99 days of peace through unity, which are leading to Peace Week in September, are devoted, Vandana, to this idea of a new earth rising. Now, this idea of a new earth has been around for a long, long time. It's been used by many people in different ways. But of course, it goes back, its ultimately origin is the prophet Isaiah, almost 3,000 years ago, who saw this prophecy of a new heaven and a new earth. And, you know, the essence of what we're speaking into across this week and across these 99 days is the rising of this moment that we are in globally and collectively, of this new earth rising, and the work you are doing in order to heal and to educate and to inform and to uplift is an essential component of what is becoming a higher consciousness on the planet, a healing and also a planetary civilization in harmony with nature. So this is the direction we are moving in, and the rising of the feminine is another key indicator of the new earth rising, the embracing of indigenous voices, of youth voices. So we really wanted to start with you, Dr. Vandana Shiva, to set the tone for us, the incredible work that you're doing in India and around the world, and to share with us what you are seeing in your work, in your incredible pioneering efforts across the globe with so many change makers and so many leaders, that is indicative that we are in the time of a new earth rising. And what are you seeing, and what is your perspective on this transformational moment?
As people around the world become more conscious of both the assaults on our Mother Earth and on her biodiversity, on her diverse cultures, there is an emerging consciousness that we are part of the earth, and a shedding, a shedding of false illusions that we are separate, we are masters, we are owners of the earth. And it's not the case that the new earth rising is happening in a vacuum. It's happening because there's an acceleration of both the worldview that has created the multiple crises, a worldview that combines, on the one hand, an epistemology and ontology that says we've got to enslave the earth. That's what Bacon wrote, in his book, The Birth of Masculine Time. We have to turn the earth into our slave to establish man's empire, that the earth rising is a prevention of the empire of man over lesser creatures. But also, why do you want an empire? Because greed suddenly becomes a social political phenomenon. That's what colonialism was. It's not that greed hasn't been there, but we've, learned to not reward it. We've learned to reward sharing, limits, recognition that the earth is living. So in my view, the new earth rising is both an amazing shift in paradigm. And from the top down, there's a desperate attempt to keep the old obsolete paradigm of mechanistic thought, of a dead earth, of the earth as just raw material for industry, idea of separation, that we are separate from the earth, that we are separate from each other, and actions are separate from their consequences. On a daily basis, I meet scientists who are, in spite of the fact that 99% of the research money is going for mechanistic reductionist science. I mean, in Europe, they have just tried to introduce new GMOs, and they just call them new gene technologies based on gene editing and CRISPR-Cas. And it's fascinating. They are activating reductionist illusions that had been put to sleep because, nature is complex. Living organisms are complex. They're self-organized and they're self-evolving. They're not a little Lego set in which you can play and move the blue and the red around and it'll have no consequences. Every movement has huge consequences. So there's amazing scientific research that's taking place. Of course, always from the margins, because the center is clinging to its false beliefs as if it will outlast the earth. And I think the new earth rising is having a good laugh. She's having a good laugh at the stupidity. And then there's practices and action. Of course, my work in Navdanya began because I first I'd seen the violence of what's called the Green Revolution is the industrial agriculture, is an agriculture based on fossil fuels and chemicals derived from fossil fuels. And I'd seen the disasters this led to in India with the disasters of the Green Revolution, 15,000 people dead. The Golden Temple had to be invaded by the army in 84. And that created a whole trigger of violence, which is not over. But that same year in the city of Bhopal, a pesticide plant leaked in the city of Bhopal, and killed thousands, and children are still being born, maimed, and there's been no justice. So I was looking for a non-violent agriculture. And then I'm at a meeting where the chemical industry says, now we've got to own the seed. We are not making enough money selling poison, we've got to own the seed. And genetic engineering, the tools of recombinant DNA, which were in the public domain, became their way of trying to not just own the seed, but claim they had created it. And that is what triggered for me both an outrage that seed is not invented by the corporations. Seed is self-evolving, self-creating, autopoietic. It's nature's poetry. And at this meeting in 87, they had said every seed will be owned by corporation. No seed will be in the hands of farmers. Because they were writing laws that made it illegal to save seeds. And as well, saving seed is your highest duty. It's a highest duty to nature to continue to work with the earth, to grow the food we need while taking care of the earth. And in these 30 years, what I've found is, anthropocentrism is such an illusion. Our role really is to first recognize we are a strand in the web of life, a very small strand. And our role is to not destroy that strand and the related strands. And the rest of the work, the amazing creativity of the earth does. So I'll just give you two examples. We've saved seeds. We've created 150 community seed banks around the world. People are saving seeds. And it's not the case that all seeds are GMOs and all seeds are patented. More and more people are saving their seeds. But when you save biodiversity, many other processes happen because the earth is creative, the earth is living. It's because we grow on our living seed bank. Right now, we are preparing to grow 750 varieties of rice around the country. We have saved 5,000 varieties of rice. But when you grow that diversity, we are not just growing diversity, we are growing food for the web of life. Food is not just for human beings. It is such an arrogant idea, which has led to industrial farming, commodity trade. We got to feed the world, we feed the world. No, the earth feeds the world. And the world includes all beings. So we've got 6 times more pollinators on our farm, even though we weren't creating a pollinator farm. And we did research on 20 years comparison between soils that are organic in our valley, in Doon Valley, and soils that are being chemically farmed. And this magical fungi, the mycorrhizal fungi, which is really the key to the living soil, because we are growing diversity without using poisons, the fungi on the organic farms has increased 36 times at 3,600%. And on the chemical farms, it's gone down 46%. But you can find that for every trace element, micronutrient. Nature is creative. In our language, we call nature prakriti. Kriti is the creation. Pra is the first source of all creation. Human creativity is dependent on the earth's creativity. And as we watch our soils have more and more biodiversity, more and more ability to deal with climate change. Last year with the heat, we measured the temperatures between our farm and its biodiversity in the soil. and neighboring farms that use chemicals and urea, you won't believe how much difference was. 25 degrees centigrade. And the moisture content was 15% more. So when we co-create with the new earth rising in humility, that the rising is being done by the earth, our role is to not do harm, but to work in her flow, that amazing potential to deal with the crisis. If we don't see the new earth rising, everyone is feeling crippled. Oh my God, I have trauma. Oh my God, there's climate change. Oh my God, this is happening. And you don't realize that the earth made this a living planet, brought the temperatures down from 290 to 13 degrees. And if we follow that path in everything we do, in the way we grow our food, in the way we build our housing, the new earth rising is really an invitation to humanity to shed its arrogance, to shed its greed, to shed its reductionism and mechanistic mind, and flower both our mind and our lives and our communities with all the potential that the earth is showing us. She's showing the way.
Yes, yes, Dr. Vandana Shiva, thank you so much. The New Earth Rising is an invitation to humanity to shed our arrogance and to listen and to learn. Thank you so much for that reframe and for that opening. There's context today as we come into this conversation to learn and to listen and to be quiet sometimes. I love the idea of you spoke before. Once we had a theme for World Unity Week, which was let's do something. And Dr. Vandana Shiva came in and said, actually, let's do nothing. And we're saying, you know, really by stopping acting sometimes is really the right move. And I think just in that spirit of stillness and wisdom, we welcome Linda as well. So welcome, Linda, again, back to World Unity Week. And just following on from Dr. Vandana Shiva's beautiful opening there, I know you have a presentation to share. So let's get into that, and let's hear from you about what you are feeling and sensing in this extraordinary, complex, beautiful, challenging moment we face at a planetary level.
Well, Ben, I'd first of all like to take up your invitation to do nothing for a moment, and secondly, I'd like to really reflect on, in that silent moment that we share now, to reflect on everything that Dr. Shiva has shared with us, because I'm sure you can feel the courage that is being reignited as we listen to these principles of recognition that our earth is conscious and she's rising. Let us take that moment and distill all that has been shared with us from a living avatar who serves Mother Earth in deepest humility and carves the way for the rest of us. A moment. When we do nothing and we listen to Earth, it is a beautiful, beautiful message that we receive back. But it is also a call to action of deepest service, even if that is simply honoring at every moment, every breath that we take, every leaf that we see the miracle of sacred geometry in. So there is much that I'd like to draw on upon Dr. Shiva's life's wisdom. And what I hear her saying to all of us is that this is an invitation, but it's an urgent one. We can't follow the ways of the human model that has been based on a sense of need and greed at the expense of the magnificent creation that is constantly reinventing herself. Mother Earth has chosen life. She is reclaiming her dominion. Our choice now is to follow that invitation and be in deep and humble service of her. So I'm actually picking up on a note that we closed last time with Dr. Vandana Shiva, and it was the note that carries into her sharing today. You said, Vandana, that we're at an exciting moment of extinction and collapse. But collapse need not be inevitable. It need not be inevitable if we are truly listening to Earth and committing to serve her first. Our question every day, every waking day, and when we go to rest at night, is to ask Earth, what is she guiding us to do in service of her? Because she knows how to regenerate herself. No problem at all. It's us who need to remember our true nature so that we can serve Mother Nature. That is the process that's happening now. And it's exciting when you see an example, a living example of the fact that we can remember our true natures. And we know that we do not serve any man-made authority, our governments or our banking systems or our legal systems. All of these have to come back into alignment with Mother Nature, who holds the key to everything. And so when we look at Dr. Shiva's description of the seed, and that it's more than an invitation, it is an imperative, it is a contract that we have with nature to ensure the continuance of the seed, which is the origin. And that's the same contract that we have with the lion and every creature in between, from the tip of the pyramid of life to the base of the pyramid. The foundation of the pyramid is the contract with continuum. And I'd like to point out that this is core to the efforts that unite our work, seemingly across continents and seemingly across different fields, the efforts to ensure continuum of life on our globe. And that word, the seed or the origin, on a previous occasion or regularly, Vandana reminds us that the term regenerative is based on generative. If we are doing regenerative farming, we need to remember where the source of life begins, the generation of life, and that is Earth. We need to humble ourselves. And so a term that you use, Vandana, is so appropriate. The philanthrocapitalism, the sense that we are fixing Earth, that we are masters of the planet, that nature, needs us to put things right. When we let go of that old style capitalistic delusion that we are the agents of the solution, and recognize that Earth is rising. She's healing herself. We need to come into deepest humility so that we can serve her. And the fossil fuels, the basis of our abuse of the gift of fire, that is the foundation of where we went wrong, how we used fire through fossil fuels, through weapons of war, through firearms, through seismic blasting. All of that is an index of us forgetting the true flame of continuum that the seed holds, or the lion holds at the top of the ecosystem. That shows us the difference between predation and consumerism. So if I may share a brief presentation that I believe links our work from top to bottom of the ecosystem and helps us all recognize we have a role to play if we are in deep service. The first is a 5-minute video of how the lions regenerated their ecosystem. All I needed to do was to serve them in humility and ensure that they had a safe place to restore Earth. Oh, I see we've got this, that's fine. This is a brief presentation of our last sharing, and it was the lion and the seed. And you see behind both of us, we are honoring nature as the original, primary source of life. And if we go to the next slide, you'll see that there are the lions in the ecosystem, free, and behind them is a predator. Now he's waiting for them to actually predate. And as Vandana Shiva reminds us, everything is food on the planet. We are all going to pass as food in some form and into spirit. So that jackal is waiting for the lions to be gifted an animal for predation. Now, this is the difference between predation and consumerism. I'd like to show you in 5 slides. If we go to the next one. So now the lions have predated. Who comes down but the vulture to clean up the rotten meat that they've, anything that's left behind, so that there's no disease in the ecosystem. He feeds and flourishes, he and she. And then the next slide is the other incredible consumed by any other animal, and then taking it into his or her system and depositing on the sacred earth. Now look what happens next. Next slide. This tortoise, its entire house is dependent on the deposit, on the waste of the hyena, who has processed the calcium that the tortoise needs to create its house. So now let's look at the next slide. There is the waste. And who is that rolling the waste? But the scarab beetle, the dung beetle, or the scarab so revered by the Khoisan people or the Egyptians. Now, that little being is going to deposit that into the earth to lay its eggs so that its eggs has life when they hatch. And so it is turning waste into wealth. This is wealth. This is recycling as we should understand it. There is no such waste in the ecosystem. So look what happens when this little being deposits it into the earth. There is the seed flourishing and sprouting from a healthy earth. Now that is predation. That is the difference between nature's laws and the laws that humanity arrogantly have been following as consumerism. We eat, we deposit waste, and there's no recycling at the present. But if we learn from nature, which many of us are, and Vandana Shiva's life's project is a living example that we can follow nature's law, because deep within us, we hold those codes as well and come into alignment with the rising earth. So if we quickly go through the next slides, we'll see a model. So that's what happens if the apex predator is taken out of the ecosystem. The apex predator, we now understand, is as critical as the seed. Every aspect of nature is critical. So that's what it does when it's put back in the ecosystem. If we go to the next slide, just very briefly, go quickly through this. We show a model that is creating an alternative view, one that serves Earth instead of the ego model that separates us from Earth, the eco model that asks what is of benefit to Earth first. If you follow that through, next slide, you see the next slide. Oh, quickly, just go through this quickly. This is my project in the middle of an ecosystem. Just keep going forward. That's the golden meridian on the globe, that where the lions live and where they restore a whole ecosystem. And on the buffer, what the United Nations call the buffer is where the communities live. But in this model, when you truly put Earth first, that is the thrive zone. in the way that Vandana Shiva describes, where working with a conscious planet in a tangible, measurable way, nature responds because she is intelligent and she supports all those efforts that serve her. So instead of going on to this model that shows more of the details, well, one more slide here. If we just go through this, you see there are two, if you go to the next ones, you'll see there are two rivers that this ecosystem serves all the way to the Kruger National Park, which is one of the biggest biosphere protected areas on the globe. And if you keep going, you'll see two rivers highlighted. You keep going. That is the meridian line, the sacred meridian line that links the lions all the way through Africa to Egypt. But keep going and you'll see two rivers that have been restored by returning the lions to their sacred lands. That's the one, and there's the other. So this work for the apex predator must include the very foundations of life. And I'd actually love, if I can, invite Dr. Shiva to speak into this before I show the 5-minute video of the lions restoring their land. Is there guidance or sharing that comes to you, Dr. Shiva, from this model that links my work to yours?
Yeah, two thoughts were passing through my mind. There's been this huge attempt to relocate cheetahs from Africa to India because they've gone extinct in India, without considering that they need ecosystems. Yeah? They can't, they're animals in zoos, that doesn't restore ecosystems. And so I think we've already lost 4 of the cheetahs because what they need wasn't taken into, it was still an entertainment for human beings, it was still showing off rather than regenerating life, taking into account what the cheetah needs for its life and ensuring it's made available. And the second is, you reminded us of what I always say, and I've learned this through the work. It's it wasn't something I studied. I studied quantum theory, but I realized that, one of the currencies of, the currency of the earth is life. One aspect of life is food. The other is water. When you see those rivers come alive, it's the currencies of life coming alive. But food is what connects us. As you showed in your slide so far, it connects the lion to every other being in that ecosystem, down to the tortoise. And I think ever since colonialism, I remember Cecil Rhodes' quote. He says, "We got to escape from Europe." Europe was in a bad shape that time and got to escape from Europe to get more resources, to get slaves to work for us, and to have markets to dump our surplus. And in a way, this urge to escape, which is a colonial urge, still continues. Look at some of our billionaires wanting to escape to Mars, and so much being spent on it, when this beautiful Mother Earth is, as I said, inviting us to join her in her rising. But so many dear friends, you went into such detail on predation versus consumerism and consumption. Consumption is mindless, without limits. Predation has built-in limits and a built-in cycle. So of course, everything is food. Everything is something else's food, as you pointed out in your slides. And so much of the energy of greed and capitalism, as well as so much of the energy of so many of our fellow environmentalists, is being dedicated to somehow escape from the food web, and play new tricks, Oh, I won't eat meat, but I'll destroy the planet for fake meat. because now the research is coming out, it's 25 times bigger footprint. It's not saving the planet, because every time you escape from the web of life, your energy demands go up, because the earth works so lightly. She works so beautifully. And as Schrodinger, one of my teachers in quantum theory, we pointed out, unlike all mechanical systems, living systems, an animal, a plant, an earthworm, an ant, a plant, they actually have negative entropy. All external systems, you have to pump them with energy. And the further you go from the web of life, the more your distancing is with the arrogance that you're fixing and deficient nature, the more energy you must consume from outside, the more pollution and entropy you must create. And somehow the amazing sophistication of never needing external energy, never needing external food inputs, never generating pollution. The earth has no waste. If we could just learn these 2 or 3 lessons that are common to what I've learned by trying to create a non-violent food system, and what you've learned from the lion, is everything is related. Everything is a cycle. And in a living cycle, there is no waste, there's no pollution. We've already addressed all the big problems that we are facing.
Indeed, thank you. And you speak about 2 technologies, the technology of war and the technology of peace. And nature is entirely the technology of peace. We need to relearn that. And I'd like to, if we may, just show that 5-minute video and then reflect on something astounding in respect of nature providing us the peace plan. And before I do that, I'd also like to echo back your words, the words that I hear you say, which are so close to my heart. You say, nature lives lightly in both senses. There is a lightness, there's a brilliance, there is a sense of the gold and green of life in everything, the spark of the creator in life. And this rising earth, if we truly, truly listen and we truly serve her in humility, maybe indeed we're looking at what all cultures prophetically saw, the golden age, in the midst of the meltdown of the human arrogant structures that have to come down. And that's why I share your optimism, Vandana, in the midst of this catastrophic collapse of systems, because they must come down. And if we commit to the simplest of principles with Mother Earth, I know we'll be supported by her, because when we are that, we are part of her children. So I also feel optimistic. And to share that optimism, before we show this video, I'm going to reflect back a year to when we last met, Vandana, and we had really just emerged out of the COVID crisis, and we were looking at what is the way forward. Obviously, it's not business as usual. Any attempt to pretend it is fake news of the worst kind. But what I'd like to remind us of is, in that incubation period, actually it was a global initiation for humanity, we learned a lot about nature that we must not forget at any cost. The first thing we learned when we were locked up like animals and caged is that nature doesn't need us. She flourishes without us. So that put us in our place. But the point is, she flourishes. She flourishes, she knows how to recover. We also learned that she is one great organism around the globe. What happens in China affects the rest of the world. What happens if the Amazon goes, are the lungs of the earth going? So we learned that as well. She's a global being. She is one Gaia, but local, living locally with the earth that you are on is the key. However simple, it's the greatest privilege to be honoring her. And that is our way back to grace, I believe. So I'd love, on that note, to show you, coming from the lions, how they restored this planet, and the role of the predator, unlike the consumer, is to serve every one of the species under them by ensuring balance and continuum of life. So if we can show that.
Like the vital organs of the body, powerful biodiversity hotspots on Earth hold the source codes for the revitalization of our entire planet and the flourishing of life itself. Life began in Africa, and speciation is associated with the East African Rift Valley at the epicenter of Earth's land masses, also referred to by evolutionary scientists as the birth canal of the human species. The white lions were born on the Nilotic meridian along the East African Rift tectonic plate and, significantly, in alignment with the most important architectural sacred sites on the African continent, Giza, Great Zimbabwe, Barberton. This means that humankind's greatest lion monument, the Great Sphinx and pyramids of Giza in the north, align exactly with the birthplace of the white lions in the south. The white lions originate in this one location only on Earth, Timbavati, meaning place where the star lions came down in the old Shangaan language, and their heartland, Tsao, meaning star lion. But while the African wisdom keepers have long revered the white lions as holy animals and bringers of peace and prosperity, their critically important role in the ecosystem is less well understood. Their cultural role in restoring hope to humankind is equaled by their ecological role in restoring health to their ecosystem. Today, we are faced with a pervading sense of the devastation and desecration of Mother Earth, as immortalized in Disney's Lion King story. When the true king is removed from his kingdom, a wasteland ensues. But there is a way to come back into right relationship with our planet. When the apex animal is restored in its natural kingdom, the flourishing of all species in the ecosystem is assured. The white lions may be living legends, mythic in their majesty and iconic in their radiant solar power, yet their ability to restore health and healing to their natural ecosystem is fundamental ecology at its best. Importantly, their place of origin is in the epicenter of South Africa's Kruger to Canyons biosphere, a UNESCO-declared biosphere region and one of the last viable lion ranges on the planet. The white lion's birthplace was declared an ancient sacred site by African kings hundreds of years before the Kruger National Park was proclaimed in 1926 and the more recent United Nations accreditation at the turn of this millennium. But tragically, the white lions have been forcibly removed from their endemic wilderness territories for a documented period of over 6 decades into zoos and circuses around the globe and into death camps in South Africa's notorious cuddle-to-kill industry. To ensure the critical survival of the white lions while protecting the watershed in their area of origin, the Global White Lion Protection Trust has been purchasing large tracts of land since 2004, the heart of the white lion's ancestral territories. Significantly, the White Line Heartlands spans the arterial river which serves the greater region, the only perennial waters in an area of some 100,000 hectares. Once a severely denuded habitat of radical biodiversity loss, the White Line Heartlands has enjoyed dramatic regeneration under the pawprint of the apex predator. This recent Google Earth map records the contrast between Tsao, the White Line Heartlands today, and the desertification of neighbouring lands directly bordering, where legalised commercial trophy hunting of lions has been taking place for decades. Just as wolves restored waterways in Yellowstone Park, so ecologists now recognise the apex predator's role in restoring balance throughout the trophic levels of the food chain in an ecosystem. As inspirational symbols of true service-based leadership, the white lions in our protected area restore health to their ecosystem and hope to human systems. Behind me is land that was once seriously degraded in the heart of the White Line Heartlands. The Global White Line Protection Trust has been purchasing large tracts of land in the white lions' endemic homelands and returning the lions to the wild in a scientific reintroduction program, because we know when the white lions flourish, all life flourishes. Today, all conservation issues are global issues. If Brazil loses its rainforests, Earth has lost her lungs. If South Africa loses its white lions, Earth has lost her heart. We can all feel it, the pulsing heart of the animal kingdom on Earth, the white lion's sacred natural site, revitalizing all the vital organs of our living planet.
Vandana, I'd like to hand over to you, but with the question, is it that we were exploring last time, restoring right relationship with our planet does depend on us recognizing that she is divine, that she holds the codes to the original, the origin, the golden gene of life. And if we resist that understanding, we are arrogant and ignorant. I don't see that we can go forward without truly humbling ourselves in that knowledge.
Absolutely, which is why, every aspect of nature and life has been held sacred in all indigenous cultures, the earth herself, Mother Earth. And, in India, you touch any species, from the monkey to the elephant to the lion and tiger, to every plant, and that's how for so long, not only have we sustained ourselves as a civilization, but evolved into a high civilization without destroying the earth. For me, that's so significant that humility, in fact, is the only path to sustainability. And arrogance is an indicator of non-sustainability. And the fear of the sacred, the fear of life, you talked about the technologies of peace. I look at a plant and its green leaf, and I say, here they are going crazy, trying to create these machines that'll suck the carbon dioxide, and after they've invested huge amounts, they'll probably be able to impact 0.01% of their emissions. And that machine will have mined more metal to build it. If you look at these carbon absorption machines, they are absolutely industrial systems. But take the green leaf. Look at its technology, free energy of the sun, the power of photosynthesis, takes the carbon dioxide, converts it into living molecule of food and fiber and everything that keeps life going, and the oxygen we breathe. Now, that's a sacred technology, and it's an amazing technology. But because nature does it, we have had these 400-500 years of defining nature as passive, inert, dead, and women as passive, inert, stupid, as a second sex. And that's why I talk of ecofeminism as how both women and nature were treated in the same way as objects to be controlled, owned, and both are alive. And it's the life that we live. So anyone who is afraid of life and freedom, which is what nature is afraid of our very being. And therefore, when I talked earlier about escape, I think at one level, colonialism, industrialism, capitalist patriarchy, wanting to technologically fix, they want to engineer the climate. If the problem of climate change is you've polluted the atmosphere, the solution they're offering is engineer more pollution, put aerosols into the sky, and we'll cool the planet. And, some of these brilliant people are Nobel laureates, and I've debated them, and I've said, and when you block the sun, they're called sun-dimming technologies, blocking the sun technology. I said, what's going to happen to photosynthesis? What's going to happen to life on Earth? And their answer is, oh, that's not our project. But how can anyone say life is not your concern? So you're so right. It is arrogance that engenders ignorance. And humility, which allows us to play with the earth, play with her. In India, she's called Lalita, the one who plays. And there's a beautiful poem, so much of Indian literature is poetry. The Vedas are all poetry. And there's an ancient Indian, the 1,000 names of Lalita, Lalita Sahasranam, 1,000 names. She plays in 1,000 ways. Yeah. And we've just done this year at Women's Day, we have a movement we created to deal with the monoculture mechanistic mind, the GMOs, the poisons, the extinction technologies. And the movement is called Diverse Women for Diversity, celebrating our diversity and the diversity of the earth and working together. And for those of you who want to, because Ben mentioned about the rise, we actually have a report of Women Rising, Earth Rising, of the work that Navdanya does with women. And this year we did a manifesto on making peace with the earth. So for those who want to share it and see it, please go to the website of Navdanya International. Navdanya is spelled Navdanya. It means 9 seeds. And this was taught to me by an indigenous person, but it also means the new gift. And in a way, the Earth Rising is giving us a new gift, but our gift is to work in service, work in alignment. So do look at this Making Peace with the Earth, and it's addressing so many of the issues with it, the paradigm shift, moving away from this constant warlike contest with the earth and between humans, because anything that creates conflict with the earth will create conflict between humans. And I would also like to mention, for those who want, this return to the earth as our being, as our consciousness, we do a whole month course of really watching the earth rising and and learning all the practices that are available alternatives to the warlike technologies. It's from 1st of September to the 30th of September. It's called Return to the Earth. We learn about living seed and living soil and living food and creating living nonviolent economies. So for this, you can go to the navdanya.org website or write to earthuniversity@navdanya.net. And I think learning from each other, from Linda, for the White Tiger, from Navdanya, of the seed, but because everything is a web, you begin with any part of it, you reach the whole web. And that's the beauty. We don't, in the Earth's play, you don't have to work in a silo. The Earth invites us to play through the web, but always, always with care, with reverence, with generosity and gratitude.
So beautiful. Go ahead, Linda. Go ahead.
I would say, Ben, that is the absolute key as you described it. And with that humble playfulness, because nature's got a sense of humor and is inviting us in to restore this madness that we created. But that humbleness is the key. And it's so fascinating being, recognizing the divinity and also the quantum mechanics of nature, that one drop of intentional reverence and service is felt in the whole system. That's encouraging.
It's beautiful. It's very encouraging. And Vandana and Linda, perhaps I have a question for you as we round this together, this beautiful, as you say, whichever part you start with, you can find the whole. And I think this movement, this global movement, is really doing an increasingly better job of defining ourselves away from the domination paradigm and into the partnership. Yesterday we had Rianne Eisler on the program, and amazing leader as well. Her seminal work, of course, The Chalice and the Blade, between going again from the dominatrix kind of domineering paradigm into what we're talking about here with life affirming and being a part of nature and listening to indigenous voices and the rising women, Vandana, that you are talking about with the amazing work from Navdanya. My question is about movement building, Vandana. You see so much of what's happening in this space around the world, from top down, bottom up, the conversations you're in, the connections that you are connected to. You have an incredibly unique and privileged, I would say, view of what's emerging on this new Earth Rising. My question is, what more can we do, or what strategies can we bring to facilitate even more? We know the values of this movement. We know who we are more than we did 50 years ago, 30 years ago. Now we are more connected, we are more self-aware, and we are ready to begin the next phase of this journey of movement building and actually becoming the dominant, let me choose my words carefully, the predominant culture on the planet, which is life affirming, which is in tune with nature, which is wisdom inspired. So what can we do to further facilitate this movement building globally over the next 5 years, let's say, to ensure that these values that we're talking about and we're learning from do carry the day on planet Earth?
Well, I can only share with you what I have learned, that you just have to learn more deeply from nature and the living earth. When I started this journey, first it was about protecting forests, and I worked with the Chipko movement. And then it came to agriculture and the seed. And at that point, the main thing was protection. That's why the beautiful action of hugging the trees. I think increasingly, even for movement building within the human community, we have to start learning to be more earth-like, more nature-like. Linda talked about the predator versus the consumer. The consumer doesn't know when to stop, because that's what consumption means, You keep on and on and on and on. The lion knows when to stop. And limits are built into living as nature. I think the second thing we definitely need to do is, of course, we've talked about this earlier, shifting up from our position of arrogance on the one side, that, we'll fix it, to service. It's a word both Linda and I have used. And I think to be in service means, first and foremost, you're very, very alive to what's going on in nature, in society, and where your little bit can play a role. And to me, the big contribution, I talked about the mycorrhizal fungi. I see these sort of grand patriarchs making these bigger and bigger machines, fooling themselves. And here's the green leaf, and here's the little mycorrhizal fungi, invisible to the human eye. And you serve the earth. We have to stop doing the harm to the earth and serve the earth. And that the rest, all of these amazing beings in the soil take care of. And just now, a recent publication has been published that just mycorrhizal fungi, through the plant, bringing the exudates, feeding the fungi, can absorb more than 13 billion tons of carbon dioxide from terrestrial plants. And if we start to function more like the mycorrhizal fungi, like a lot of my friends worry because, 10, 20 years ago, the media used to be at our doorstep because our voice was needed. But since that time, our voice has become threatening. It's the same voice. We're saying the same things. There's a huge criminalization of ecologists and environmentalists right now in every society. And I say, well, the mycorrhizal fungi goes on doing its work invisibly. And we shouldn't be anxious, because I think a lot of movements are first seeking visibility, not looking at service, but thinking of how can I be more visible. To try and make themselves visible in an age where you're not supposed to be visible. But it doesn't matter really, does it? As long as you find your space of service. And that doesn't need visibility, it needs the spirit of service. The second, another aspect is, the fungi. Now there's so much research, it's all very recent, even though Albert Howard had talked about the mycorrhizal fungi in his book that he wrote, 1905 when he came to India, then he wrote the Agricultural Testament. But not only is it invisible, it has such amazing potential. In one little cubic inch, this much, can hold 8 miles of the fungi. And it's not, the soil has all the minerals. It's just that the plant can't get access to them. So the fungi reaches out far away where there's a mineral that this particular plant needs. The plant is intelligent, the fungi is intelligent. Goes and picks up what is needed and gives it to the plant. And the plant, meantime, is giving the carbohydrates, the living carbon, that the fungi need. And the symbiosis of being one, of being interbeings, is how we can build movements. Yeah. Not be afraid of invisibility and expand your potential to see what you can find where to give. I think we've had few hundred years of an extractive economy of grabbing. And now everyone has been infected with that insecurity. And now a large number of people are being thrown away. What they call the cost of living crisis is really basically saying, you don't need to be taken care of. But I think these are all man-made structures. The market is a man-made structure. Money is a man-made currency. And if we were to then say, in this period of deep crisis, particularly human crisis, how do we turn to the earth to find our service? And she will take care of us. Self-provisioning living economies grow out of care for the earth. We have to stop seeing economy as above ecology. We've got to start seeing it as a little subunit. But if it's a subunit, then its currencies must be the same. Its flows must be the same. You cannot have ingredients that the earth doesn't want. Yeah, she plays, but she's pure. In the earth systems, the food that circulates is real food, unlike the human systems where we've learned how the purest of energy, a very quantum way, which is connected all the time to everything else. And here we've managed to live with junk. Fossil fuels are junk energy. They don't belong to nature's creation. I mean, she put them down, she fossilized them and said, let them sleep, down below. 600 million years she took to say, let them be underground. So I think if we were to turn to nature, and every time we have a dilemma in movement building, let's ask ourselves, and how does the earth do it? And I think the answers come.
What a brilliant, beautiful answer. Thank you, Dr. Vandana Shiva, for that deep wisdom. And Linda, I'd like to give you an opportunity to respond to anything that's been shared. I think you still have some slides to go through. If you'd like to continue, then please do. But anything you to bring in at this point. I'd like to ask Linda, how are the white lions? What's the state of the pride? How's the health of the white lion? Vadi as well. I'd love to get an update.
Okay, well then let's quickly go back to that slideshow and pick up where we were, because at one level, they are fantastic. In our project, they're protected and they're doing their work. So what you saw there was, you can go to the next slide. What you saw is that the lions, if they're given the opportunity, they restore the entire ecosystem. And so whether you start with the seed or you start with the apex, everything is interrelated. And so the good news, there's good news. We ended last time on the fact that we managed to secure the land under the, under the auspices, I think that's not the word, but there was a plan for the development in the middle of the ecosystem. You see that that skull and crossbones, a typical old style monoculture, poisonous farming development right on the river that feeds the entire ecosystem. We were successful in stopping that and ensuring that the water stays in the river. If we just keep moving forward, just keep the slides going, I'll stop next. But essentially, to answer your question, how are the lions doing? there's a huge crisis around South Africa's lions, who are the worst index of consumerism, being bred to be killed in an industry that turns lions into commodities. And when that happens, you know that you have reached the end of your relationship with nature, when the king of animals is treated as a commodity. Can we keep the slides going? But the fact that they have been returned to the place on Earth where they occurred naturally is very significant. When nature is protected, what I'm showing you here in the slide is the human footprint next to the ecosystem. And it looks disastrous because all the Earth has been cleared at the source waters of the sacred river of Timbabati. You see how the land's been cleared. However, the model, and I think this speaks into Dr. Shiva's model, the model is that the ecosystem can move out into the neighboring communities where food sovereignty is calling as an invitation in every backyard. And that is a reminder to community that the solutions are at hand. And they needn't be a grand design at all. In the simplest way of simply looking at the land available to you and treating it with sacredness and sanctity, and knowing that nature will respond in kind. She always gives more than we could possibly ever give to her. So if you keep going, that is a project that we have been assisting with in a very humble, listening way, of the kind that Vandana reminds us of, is that there's a restoration of indigenous medicinal and nutritional plants in everyone's backyard, just beginning on a small scale. And that can be the model of the future, and food sovereignty that grows from Earth. Every plant that comes from out of the region is flanked by 4 indigenous plants. So if we go fast through the last slides, I think we're going backwards now, just keep going, or keep going forward, just to show you the lions as a closing image, and how they hold the connection with water, with the golden codes of life. And if we remember life and the origins of life, the aura gene, we remember also, again, Dr. Shiva's word and reminder that nothing is regenerative in the sense that all generation comes from nature. And what we are invited to do as a community is to celebrate nature. You'll see the next closing slides. Celebrate whatever species, plant, animal, crystal, whatever species, water. We know that in India now, the Ganges has been given the rights of a personhood, I would say. I mean, that's a start, just a start in terms of our recognition that all law, the original law, comes from nature. And that's our closing image. We can go back to our grandmothers in our region and how the lions are the ancestors guarding over them, and how they honor nature in return.
Very beautiful, Linda, very moving, and wonderful to hear this presentation. So nature, Mother Nature has the answers. Let's not seek for visibility. Small is beautiful. Keep learning and be like the fungi. These are the takeaway points in so many different ways. What an extraordinary conversation. I know we could continue. There are many people watching this on various channels out there, or just live streaming out to the different platforms. But it feels to me, Lion in the Seed Part 2, it feels to me there's got to be a Part 3 sometime, Vandana and Linda. Maybe in Peace Week in September this year we could reconvene. But you have blessed us so richly and so greatly with your sharing, with your wisdom. This is something I will encourage us to go back and watch this again. and again, and to draw out the wisdom that is in, because there's so many layers and so many levels, and it's in the relationship between these two extraordinary leaders of our time and your individual devotions coming together in this grand whole. There are so many lessons and so much wisdom here. Vandana, thank you for being with us. I want to give you an opportunity to have a closing remark.
Someone asked about the seed as teacher, and the seed has been a very big teacher for me for the last 3 decades. We are always made afraid of scarcity. The seed by its very nature multiplies. Regeneration, we're constantly looking at regeneration. The nature of seed is to regenerate. Its urge is to regenerate. And that's why the contest of how not to let the seed regenerate is also a lesson for human communities to understand what are the new constraints being created that block our freedom. So abundance, renewal, and the same as the fungi. For the seed to germinate and become a plant, it must go into the soil for a while. And then, of course, it becomes many seeds in the plant. And all of creation, it creates its networks. That's why creating community, the seed creates community with all the soil organisms, with all the insects above. Yeah. And can you imagine the level of relatives the seed has? So we need to cultivate more relatives because, again, humans have been made to feel so lonely, so atomized, so fragmented. And the minute we say, well, if the seed can create relationships with the fungi and bacteria and can offer her flower to the bee, what are all our potentials? Where can we reach out to be more human family, more earth family?
Wow. Hariom, thank you. Earth family, human family. Linda Tucker, final word today is yours. Thank you so much again for being with us, Linda.
I would pick up on that same note that our family as nature is waiting for us to come back into the fold. But to do that is, as we describe, humility, service, and deepest reverence. If we hold that, we have the key to find our way back, to be part of the great awakening that our Mother Nature is going to do with or without us. Let us be part of that. Thank you for this movement and the sense that we are all part of the fungi doing this together. It's deeply encouraging. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your extraordinary leadership. The lion and the seed. Thank you. Blessings. Blessings on your evening, Dr. Vandana Shiva, and
thank you.
Everyone around the world. Blessings on your day. Thank you, Linda. More soon. Bye for now.
Thank you, Vandana.